Welcome to Almost Awakened. I'm your host, Bill Reel. We explore human development here, spirituality, psychedelics, sexuality, and more. Our aim? Equipping you with tools for a fulfilling post-religious life. This is Almost Awakened. Welcome to another episode of the Almost Awakened podcast. I'm your host, Bill Reel. Grateful for the chance to be with you folks today. I've got a special guest. I'm gonna call him a celebrity. He is a radio personality down here in Southern Utah. I've known him for a few years now, and just a incredible personality, great sense of humor. It's not Mick Foley. It's not Matt Foley. This gentleman does not live in a van down by the river, but instead, this is Southern Utah's Michael Foley. How are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Life treating you well, my friend?
Yes, I think so, for the most part.
Excellent. You are part of the radio show Mikey and the Misses, where you and your wife, and you've been doing radio for a long, long time. She joined up with you maybe, I don't know what it was, 3, 4 years ago? 5 years ago?
It was about 7 or 8 years ago,
Wow.
actually.
Been time
Yeah.
flies.
Mhm.
And you do a show down here. You're always joking around, providing laughs. I think you've gotten into like doing TikToks and shorts, and
Mhm.
you've got quite the following down here. And I know from time to time that I see your stuff show up, and I'm just laughing my ass off. And
Oh,
no
good.
offense to those who are bothered by bad language, maybe tuning in, but I use a little bit of it. So before we jump into it, Mikey, uh, give the folks maybe a brief bio of yourself, just kind of an overrun of who you are, and then we'll jump into a few things.
Sure. Like you said, I'm Mikey. I do a morning show with my wife, Mike. There it is, Mikey and the Misses. Weekday mornings from 6 to 10. And we have an awful lot of fun doing that. Where I'm from, I'm originally from Michigan.
Ooh, I'm
Grew
from
up
Ohio.
there.
We're these Midwesterners.
There you go. I've been to Cedar Point several times,
Ooh, yeah,
and
yeah.
absolutely love it. So we probably have matching damage. Um, uh, Being from Michigan, was raised LDS, and um, all of the fun things that come with turning down soda. Growing up in the Midwest, and uh, yeah. What else do you need to know? Went to high school in Las Vegas at a performing arts academy, and went to school at Southern Utah University, and also at what used to be Dixie State University, is now Utah Tech, and uh, met a girl, married her, and here I am. 5
Awesome.
kids and a morning show.
A little bit of trauma later, and here you are. Look at that.
Yeah. Just
So
like everybody else.
yeah, up at the in the beginning there, I threw a picture up of Mick Foley, the wrestler, Matt Foley, the Chris Farley character. I
Yeah,
was just going to ask you if you relate to either of those. You knew both, but I threw them up. You knew who both of those folks were.
of
I'm just
course.
curious if you watched a lot of wrestling growing up when you were a kid.
Yeah, who didn't, man?
Yeah,
Like,
me
in the
too, my friend.
'80s, everybody was into wrestling. I mean,
Yeah,
like, you would always find that one rich friend, and you would go to his house, and they had a WrestleMania pay-per-view,
yeah.
and, I still vividly remember watching Hulk Hogan, beat Andre the Giant in WrestleMania, and that was, like, a really big
That
deal, and
wasn't the most beautiful body slam, but he did get him up there.
he did it. And, Mick Foley, sure. Being completely unhinged and starving for attention, yeah, I totally get that. Uh, Chris Farley is a absolute hero of mine. There's never been a time where I have not laughed my brains out watching Tommy Boy, which takes place in beautiful Sandusky, Ohio. So
Only in concept, by the way. The actual city was not Sandusky, Ohio, but that was what the movie portrayed it as. Our airport wasn't near that nice. It was like an open cornfield. It was like the field in Delta that President Nelson's plane landed in. Was
yeah,
was sort of kind of how our airport was in Sandusky, Ohio. Tiny little, you know, single engine planes, one
yeah,
propeller.
yep, yeah, yep, I remember Sandusky pretty well. Yep.
So, do you have a lot of fun at Cedar Point? Do you have a favorite ride there?
I remember going on the Gemini and then
Mm.
wondering if I would live. Not because it was scary, but because it was in such ill repair. Like, if
Yeah.
people that are watching, most likely you have not been to Cedar Point. But if you ever want to wonder if these are the last moments of your life, go on the Gemini. It was wood and it was rotted and it was old. And this was back in the 90s. This was rotted and old. And it would shake you around so violently that you wondered if you would die. It was amazing.
Yeah,
It was awesome.
they've added a bigger wooden coaster, the Mean Streak, and then they've updated both of them, so they're even more scary than they were then.
Uh-huh.
Um, one of the first coasters again, we'll get here into some of these questions, but one of the first coasters that I rode, I wasn't really a roller coaster kid. I was sort of scared of them.
Mhm.
And my mom takes me to Cedar Point one day with my cousin and my aunt, and we get on the corkscrew, I believe it was.
Uh-huh.
And my mom's like, no, look, it's not gonna be that bad. Let's get on. So she gets in, I get in, I pull the thing down, the lap bar that clicks into place, and there's no taking that
Yeah.
son of a gun off when that thing
Yeah. It's
clicks.
game over now. You
My
can't
my
change your mind.
mom bailed. My mom got her booty out of the roller coaster cart, and she said, "Oh no, I'm too scared. I can't do this." And she got
That
up.
dirty rat.
And then suddenly it's like, "We'll see you back here in 2 minutes." And
Horrible. That is so mean.
that's wrong. It's
Well, I
wrong.
remember going
God
with my
rest her soul.
friends. I would go with my friends, and it was always this weird mind game all day long of making your friends and yourself psyched up to go on to rides that you did not want to go on, but you didn't want to seem like a coward. And you wanted to make sure that the most cowardly person in the group goes on the roller coaster, so you would lie to them, much like your mother did to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she scammed me. Um, do you have any jokes about Michigan and Ohio? Like we have one where we used to people would say, like, how do I get to Michigan? You go, oh yeah, you go west until you smell it, and then north until you step in it. And I assume you guys had kind of the same sort of stuff
It
going
was
on.
the exact same joke, but reverse. That was it. We're not very creative in Michigan. I will say
Or
that.
Ohio.
We're not known for our creativity, so much as just our factory working mentality. Um,
Yeah.
but, no, yeah. For the longest time, I genuinely believed that Ohio was an inferior place filled with very stupid, dirty, disgusting human beings.
And you would be right.
And yeah, but so was Michigan.
So
So
was
that was
they
the
were it was a wash. It was a neutral tie.
I know, it was so
They
awesome.
both had bad football teams. They both didn't do that great at baseball. I had a friend I worked
Yeah.
with in Port Clinton, Ohio, who joked around that the Pistons were his favorite team, and he had a piston hat, piston pants, piston shoes. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
get it. Yeah. Piston pants. Yeah, I get it.
all
Yeah,
right, there you go.
it's right there. I got it. I got you.
Good, sweet.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to have you on is because I think you're really smart. I think that you have a lot of life experience behind you that has really shaped your nuanced view of the world, your ability to poke fun at things, the religious faith that we both come from, a little bit of humor there. I see your show. You really don't. You really find it. You really make use of kind of the absurdity sometimes of how we humans do things, and you seem to see that really easily. And I thought it'd be fun to have you on and have a conversation. So uh, let's
Sure.
jump into it. One of the things that we all experience is trauma. Um, when your mom gave birth to you, both of you experienced trauma. It's inevitable. There's no way to get through this life without getting some. And
Yeah.
and yet some of it's unnecessary. People are often hurting each other and causing harm in on this side of life. I really want to try to reduce that. And I'm just wondering, maybe what are some of your thoughts on the topic of trauma?
I kinda struggle with that, just because, maybe it's my Midwest mentality, in the macho-ness of, suck it up and get over it, kind of a thing. I'm seeing the word trauma an awful lot, and I'm kinda conflicted by it
Yeah.
because if you look on TikTok, you'll be under the impression that absolutely everyone is just experiencing a roller coaster of trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. But I look at it as a 44-year-old native Midwesterner and I go, no, that's not trauma. That's a bummer. That,
That's a
that
Wednesday for you.
that's a bummer, dude. That's not because for some reason I've got this bar in my head of what constitutes trauma, and it's pretty high. in comparison to what the next generation has. So, unless it's like blatant abuse or you watched your dad, burn to death, it's pretty hard to call something trauma for me, but I do understand where they're coming from. Save your comments, save your emails. I know I am not
You can
qualified to
email
tell
Michael
other people
Foley
what
at,
their trauma is,
you can email Michael Foley at no, I don't know. Go.
Well,
Okay, finish the
I'm
thought.
on the radio, I deal with complaints a
All the
lot,
time, yeah.
so it's a normal kind of a thing, but anyway, I'm kinda conflicted about do you ever find that to be true? Do you ever find yourself looking at someone talking about trauma and going, "Oh, that's not so bad." You know, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so I'm probably on the other side of the spectrum. So first off, my life has been pretty easy, and,
Yeah.
uh, if somebody said like, "Hey, would you go back and do it all over again?" I would. No questions asked, let's just do it all over again. I'll take the bumps I got because the fun was worth it.
Mhm.
But there is something about when human beings put their own needs in front of other people to the point where they let other people incur infractions, and sometimes those are minor, and we deal with that. But I probably have a much lower bar for what I would consider trauma. Not that like I go like lowercase t and capital T trauma. I understand the difference, but I
Mhm.
really want to make room for people who are marginalized in
Yeah,
even sort of small ways to go like, "That wasn't fair. That wasn't appropriate. Like,
yeah,
that person shouldn't have done that to you, and I'm really sorry you had to incur that." And I do think that a lifetime of even those little acts can add up.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that and that's why I say that I struggle with it. I think if I were just a D-bag, I would just look at it and go, "Oh, get over it, whiny little turds." But I struggle with it because I look at it and go, "Well, that's not fair of me. I am not qualified to tell other people what counts as trauma and what doesn't." But it does take a while for me to unwind that head trash and go, "Okay, let me be more," because I want to be an empathetic person. Like more than any I want to understand the other side of things all the time, you know? Um, yeah. Trauma is a tough part of that stuff. It could also be the problem that I have giant, thick stone walls around my feelings. That
I've
might be
heard
it.
I've heard that about you.
They're
I think you
very
self-admitted that at a party we
tall,
were at.
very thick walls, and that's why I don't wanna go near any kind of psychedelics, because I have spent so much time and effort building these walls that I don't wanna see these beautiful stone structures falling, and especially not in front of other people. You know what I mean? That's I'm gonna be completely honest. I know that this podcast is all about people who have become enlightened and on their journeys and everything like that. Great. I am going to go ahead and be that person that if somebody is listening right now can relate to that has not been able to go through all of that journey and is terrified of starting. That's partly me.
Do
Yeah.
you think you use so again, you're hilarious, and I
Oh,
think you're quick-witted, like, your ability I sat at a party with you maybe a year or 2 ago, and we're sitting around a backyard, and just how fast your mind works, I deeply appreciate it. As somebody who I think I'm intelligent, I think I'm articulate, I'm really impressed with your quick-wittedness and humor, and I'm just curious, man, any thoughts you have maybe, like, is humor maybe a way to avoid sometimes the serious things that are going on around you?
a coping mechanism?
Yeah,
100%. Yes. I think I developed it and hey, look at that. You got me talking about trauma. Nice job. I think I kind of developed that. My parents got a divorce when I
Ooh,
was, pretty young,
capital T
and
trauma.
it sucked. It was
I
yeah,
mean, it wasn't
it is.
burning in
No,
a building or
he
anything,
didn't
but it's
burn to death. He just left. No,
yeah.
so my parents got a divorce, and they would
He just
argue
left.
my parents would argue a lot. And they tried to keep it from me and everything like that, but some stuff you just can't hide. You can tell that there's tension in the room. And there was always a lot of tension between my mom and my dad. My my sister and my dad, my sister and my mom, all of this kind of stuff. And me being the youngest, I was pretty good at the dinner table, just cracking people up and breaking that tension. To this day, I hate conflict and tension. Like like other people love watching reality shows. My stomach gets tied in knot.
Ooh.
I can't watch reality shows. They make me sick. Same thing with what do you call it? Like hidden camera shows. Can't do it. I get so uncomfortable. I need to leave the room. I hate it. I hate conflict and I hate it. And so I think at a very early age, I learned how to diffuse situations using comedy. And I had a lot of bullies. And I found that it's really hard to punch someone when they're making you laugh. Once I broke them, they started laughing. They're like, I can't beat up this kid anymore. And then they would leave. And it worked really well, you know. So, yes, coping mechanism, 100%, Mr. Real. That
I
is that is something I do.
I when you said like I can't watch uh certain types of things on television because you don't want to feel the drama of that. And I'm the opposite. Like I want to sit with
Really?
the drama TV shows, and I even like make an effort in my head to really get in their space. I can't remember what the name of the show was, but it was this corporate business atmosphere. I forget what the name of it was, but we watched all 7 seasons of it, and every episode.
Succession?
Oh yeah.
That's
Ooh,
the one that I'm staying away from. Yeah, Succession, because everybody tells
Succession.
me about how much drama and how much
Oh, you
infighting
gotta
comes of
feel
that.
it. Every episode as they try to cover their ass and get the business to be in under their leadership, it is nonstop having to manipulate and finagle the world
Yeah,
around you, and it's heavy. And you just stay away from stuff, and I just wanna
I
I
do.
wanna climb in there and just sort of feel what they're feeling and kinda think about it from their perspective.
Well, you know what's bonkers? I can watch Breaking Bad till the cows come home. I freaking love Breaking Bad. I think it's the best
What's the
movie
difference?
TV. I'll tell you what the difference is. The difference is that in Breaking Bad, he is dealing with problems like, how do I get away with this crime? How do I kill this person and get away with it? How do I blah 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 blah? But the minute he starts fighting with his wife, I gotta fast forward it. I
That's
don't like
it.
that.
The
I don't like that
domestic
at all.
disputes are not allowed here.
Nope. That's not gonna is that the tip of a much bigger iceberg? Yes, it is.
Sounds like you may need some therapy, maybe years of it, who knows?
This is
But
what sucks is that, we have a mutual friend who is my sister-in-law, and she's going to school to be a therapist, and she loves nothing more than to break down people's walls and just pop the hood and, like, get in there, and, once she gets close, she can tell that I go, like, "Ah, well, let's make jokes.
you
Let's do
shut
something
down.
else."
Let's laugh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I wanna ask you, in the world of, like, there's religion and there's spirituality in religion,
Mhm.
and there's also sort of spirituality outside of it, and I think you do a beautiful job of kind of mixing those 2 worlds. I'm just curious, like, in terms of, like, practices or tools that you have that you think are kind of effective at, getting better at being a human being, trying to
Yeah.
show up tomorrow better than you were yesterday. Any thoughts about what you've done in
Yeah.
your life to kind of create understanding or being able to see issues from the other person's side?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Here's one of those things that I've kinda done. Going back to the idea that I hate conflict a lot, and I'm a very conflict averse, just kind of a person. Um, I am always looking to make sure everybody in the room is having a good time.
Mm,
That's when I'm most happy. And so, for example, um, we found on Google Trends what people Google when it comes to Mikey and the Missus. And the number one thing that people Google is Mikey and the Missus Mormon? The second one, are Mikey and the Missus active? LDS. The third one is I lied, there is no 3rd one. It was just those. That is what people are asking all the time. And here's the problem. And I am happy to I will address this in the most nuanced way possible just to get it all out there. And this is my choice here. Is if someone goes on the internet and they say, "I am an ex-Mormon," then all of the current Mormons will be suspicious of everything that falls out of that person's mouth. They will see it as an attack. If I go on there and say, "I am uh, a active member," now all of the ex-Mormons will assume that I am an absolute idiot. And so there is no winning there. I am
Can't
on
make
the
them all
winning team.
happy.
There's no way to make everybody happy, and
No.
that's my number one goal in life. And so if you have 50% of your audience hate your guts, that's not good to be on the radio in Southern Utah. Now, what am I? I am a person who worships according to the dictates of his own conscience and affords every man and woman the same.
I've heard
That's
that
what I
before.
am.
Yeah.
And do I get into the details? No, because it fixes nothing with anybody. The thing is that I want everybody to just have a good time. And so when you see that I'm making these videos like Your Mama's So Mormon and things like that, you will notice that I am making fun of culture and I am not attacking what someone would consider to be sacred. Do I have strong opinions about these things? Absolutely. But there is a time and place. And I'm not interested in burning down someone's house just in order to have fun. That's just not my jam. You know what I mean? And so I know this had nothing to do with your question, but I'm getting that out of the way, and I'm saying, uh, I like to be as empathetic as possible with other people. I think it's very easy to look at something like politics, for example. It is so easy and so lazy to look at somebody who believes something differently than you and just pass them off as absolute morons. But and it's funny and it's fun and it's got its time and it's got its place and everything like that. But I get a kick out of stopping and going, "Why do you think that?" And that is so exciting for me. That is like the spice of life for me. It is when I can sit down with somebody and I can go, "That I have never thought of it that way. Please explain to me why you think birds are not real." Like whatever it is, I need to know this.
Yeah.
This is fascinating. And so I think a sense of curiosity has really, really helped. And my job has really, really helped because it has forced me not to be a dick. That's the greatest thing about my job is that I want to bring people together and have a good time. And it's really hard to do that if you're being a jerk and you're putting somebody down or punching down. And I think if I didn't have this job, I probably would have fallen into that when I'm going through my faith crisis, when I was going through, a lot of these different things and figuring out the world. But this job forcing me to be civil, what a blessing. What a blessing. Because I could very easily just destroy every relationship I have if I didn't think, is that smart to say on Facebook? Is that wise to say on Facebook? You know what I mean? Just let's be nicer, and then just save it for when I'm at a party with Bill Reel in the backyard, and then I can say whatever I want.
Right. Yeah. Do you ever find that your empathy maybe gets in the way of your own needs or insecurities being taken care of?
Of course.
Yeah.
Um, speaking of free therapy, I mean, going back to divorce again, um, me and my mom moved out to Las Vegas just by ourselves because the other 2 were grown, and I, quickly assumed the role of the guy who had to take care of mom, even though she was an adult and stuff like that, but emotionally, I had to take care of mom,
Mm.
and I find myself filling that role all the time. And to the point where here's a very simple example. Every year my wife says, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I have no idea because I don't know. I'm not thinking about that. All I'm thinking about is my next video, my next show, how to edit something on YouTube correctly, and things like that. I'm not thinking about myself that much. Um, but I am thinking, is my wife happy with me? I'm always thinking that all the
Mm,
time, all
mm.
day long. That kind of stuff. But no, yeah, it's tricky. Do you ever struggle with that?
Um, yes, but not the way that we're talking about. I mean, I also try to be really empathetic. When I sit in a room with people, I also like to joke a lot, and I don't believe in political correctness. Like everybody gets to be made fun of,
Yeah,
including me.
yeah.
And but also you can see moments where somebody nicks somebody else. And I
Mm,
try to be aware of those moments and address it in a way that's not a dick to the person who maybe unintentionally messed up,
yeah.
or and I also want to protect kind of the feelings of the person who just got nicked.
Yeah.
Um, so not necessarily in the way like I'm not in experiences taking care of others and feeling like I'm sort of left out. Uh, but it sounds to me like you are much more strong in doing that act, and hence your needs might get left a little more by the wayside. And I think it's fascinating as you point to your parents' divorce and sort of the mechanism that you were thrown into. Like, here's what we now do for this family is I help mom to be able to hold her emotion and hold space for how she feels and
Mhm.
to be sort of a shoulder for her to lean on. And then you go out into the adult world and you find it's a skill set that you take with you. But in part, getting your own needs sort of left by the wayside at times, and you said you find joy in helping the whole room to be happy, and
Mhm.
I think that's an interesting irony. Is that the right
Yeah,
word?
yeah. I mean, it's a much, better way to say that I'm screwed up.
Oh, I think we
I
all
think
are.
I think everybody is. But, yeah, there's that obsession with making sure everybody else is taken care of before I am, which is weird because I think a lot of people would consider me to be a rather selfish person. But I'm selfish in the other way of, well, yeah, I'm selfish, but I really, really want people to like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's a big thing. Of course, that really helps in my job because that's my job is for people to be likable.
yeah,
But yeah, as far as putting my needs out there, I'm half the time I don't even know what they are
yeah,
outside of like physical, like urges.
yeah,
Like food and sex,
yeah,
I'm always
those
aware of those. I'm always aware of when I want that.
yeah,
But as far as everything else, I don't have the first idea until I have to really think about it.
I find that fascinating, and I think most of us do some of that to some extent where we really don't even know who we are inside sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
Um I worry a lot in this space about the abuse of myths. You look at what's going on in the Middle East right now, and they
mhm,
are literally fighting over like 1.4 miles of width of land
yeah,
in a small stretch along the sea.
yeah, yeah,
And they will blow each other up to move that line 3 inches.
mhm,
And thousands of young men will die so
yeah,
that a few people at the top or organizing these attacks on one side or defending themselves on the other,
mhm,
depending on who you believe.
yeah,
um, Myth stories can be so utilized to cause harm. If you can
yeah,
convince a room of people to believe some extreme thing,
yeah,
and to some degree, I mean, even within our own religious history, you look at things like Mountain Meadows Massacre, for
yep,
instance,
oh, yeah,
and you can see
yeah,
that play out. And so I want to see maybe what your thoughts are. There's this balance because I don't think we can live without myth.
mhm,
And I think some myths really only work if we sort of believe in them even though they're not exactly true. And they can be easily corrupted and used to cause significant harm. And I'm curious maybe what your thoughts are on the kind of walking that fine line between I'm going to have myths in my life, I'm going to use
Mhm.
them,
Yeah.
and I'm going to use these tools to sort of decide that some of these are too extreme and I'm just not going to do that.
You know, I've given this stuff a lot of thought. One thing that is absolutely fascinating is, I remember, I don't remember where I was seeing it, and I could be completely wrong, but the way that the Greeks saw all of their pantheon of gods and stuff like that, they had myths and they said they lived in Mount Olympus and things like that, but then nobody took it literally.
Mm,
Right? They were all just like, "Oh, yeah, and so and so lives over there, and so is the god of this and the other thing," but they didn't take it seriously, as being literal, and, man, that's a healthy way to go.
mm.
Because once everything becomes literal and real, that's I love superheroes. I love Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. I could tell you everything about their histories, about, the storylines and everything like that. I don't believe that these things are real. And I think when I was going through my faith crisis, it was so much of, okay, what is real and what is myth? What is a lesson and what is absolutely true? And, Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark and all of this kind of stuff that just didn't have any kind of proof at all. And it blows up everything when you're taught that something is literal all the time, you know. And I remember I'm kind of skipping all over the place. Sorry. It's called
I love it.
attention deficit
Yeah.
disorder. Google it. And I remember on my mission, I went to Wisconsin. Yeah, grew up in Michigan, went to Wisconsin.
That was so not
Thank
nice of the church to do that to you. You lived in Michigan and they
Thankfully,
just sent you to another state that was neutral to the quality of that state.
it was so lame. Like, afterwards, like, you know how other people have, like, these big homecomings and stuff? It sucked. I called my dad, and I was like, "I'm done with my mission. Can you come pick me up now?" He's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll be there in a bit." And he drove me and picked me up from the mission home. It was lame. Anyway, so I'm on my mission in Wisconsin, and we're going to this giant, church on Christmas, and it's so amazing. If you've ever been to a Catholic mass on Christmas, dude, it is the bomb. It is so cool. There's lit up candles all over the place and everything like that. And I'm feeling the quote unquote spirit very big
Hmm.
in this thing, and it starts messing with me a little bit. But I remember being in there because Catholics don't have the spirit. Everybody knows that. So I'm there and I'm feeling these wonderful feelings, and it's starting to mess with me. And I start to think, whoa, is religion mostly theater? 'Cause I
Mm,
was, like, a big theater guy, and I still am, I love theater, and that started messing with me and going, "Oh, you can actually evoke feelings out of people using theater, and it doesn't matter if you use certain chords and stuff like that with music, you can get the exact feeling that
mm.
you need out of somebody, and you can use it to your advantage."
Elevation emotion is easy to initiate.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is so easy to initiate, especially if you are the one controlling the definition of that feeling. To somebody and say, "Oh,
Mm.
you feel that? You know what that is? That's the spirit trademark." So, I'm there and I think, "Oh, maybe it's theater." And then for many years later, I go, "Well, maybe this is how I can deal with religion. Maybe if I just look at it as theater, and that's fine." But then it dawns on me, mm, the difference is that when I go to a play, Andrew Lloyd Webber is not telling me that he'll split up my eternal family if I don't believe in singing cats.
Right.
So that's where it crosses the line. That's where that's where myth gets dangerous. Is when they say, "Okay, we've got all of these stories, we've got all these things that we cannot prove empirically, and now we're benefiting from it." And so that's yes, myth is dangerous in many, many ways. It causes, like, the Mountain Meadows Massacre, it causes these things like what's going on in the Middle East and so on.
Mm,
And, uh, Batman has never demanded 10% of my income from me.
mm.
Uh, I pay far more than that in Batman Funkos, but I know what I'm getting in return in this life, not the after one. So, it works out.
It
I don't know where I was going with all of that at
that's
all.
that's okay. I like it.
Usually I cut to a commercial or a song when I start to ramble, and right now I am completely off the rails.
Not at all.
And yeah, so
Not at all. I appreciate it. It you're right. Like myth can be used. Again, we all have sort of an inner intuition about what is right and what is wrong. And in earlier stages of life, we maybe don't have quite the tools yet to really stand firm on what's right. We could easily maybe manipulate the world into what we'd like it to be. Hence, we act unhealthy and hurt others by trying to get the world in front of us that we want.
mhm,
And we tend to sort of kind of also really trust almost blindly everyone who tells us from an authority position what the truth is. And whatever message gets to us first, if you're raised in a home of Democrats,
mhm.
you're going to have a much more high propensity of being a
Yep.
Democrat or a liberal, and vice versa.
Mhm,
And so whoever gets to you first seems to have this kind of overwhelming kind of thing. And what you point out is like this idea that when things are not demonstrable, that which is one of my favorite words. When
mhm.
things are not demonstrable, when people go, I know you're feeling something inside that tells you that what I'm doing is wrong or what we're doing is wrong, but damn it, do exactly what we tell you to do, or else you don't get the super
Yeah.
special secret
Yeah.
space in super special heaven.
Right, you don't get to go to the VIP lounge. Yeah, and I you brought up an interesting point there. When one of the biggest differences in my life has come from what I consider to be a sin and what I don't consider to be a sin. Before, I considered pretty much everything that was against whatever handbook was a sin. Nowadays, there needs to be a victim in order for me to
Mm.
consider it a sin.
So
Where's the
touching yourself isn't a sin.
no, setting myself
Because
on fire, yes. Now there's a victim. But you know what I mean? Like, there has to be a victim in
yeah.
order for it to be
Someone had to be
wrong.
hurt. If
Yeah,
nobody's hurt, and it can't just be your opinion about what others should be or do that counts.
no.
Sometimes they throw that out, right? Like,
Well, and this is the thing, if you wanna worship squirrels in your basement, let freedom ring. But the
yeah.
minute that you go to a town hall and start to introduce legislation for the rest of us based on the things the squirrels told you in your basement, now we have a problem. That
Or
that
if you tie the squirrels up and you start pulling their fingernails out or something like that,
right,
that shouldn't happen
that's a
either. The
problem.
squirrel can also be a victim.
You there you go. But in order for it to be a sin, there has to be a victim,
Yeah.
and
That
that
makes
has
sense.
been a guiding force for me, uh,
Hmm.
for a while now. And speaking of, just I wanna circle back really quick, because you just reminded me of something. Did Jesus die for my sins? I don't know. But I can tell you that the Jesus that's in the New Testament is my hero.
Hmm.
And even if the even if I'm not sure if he's real or not, doesn't matter, because Batman isn't real, but he's my hero too. Now, when I look at Jesus and the example of Jesus and the things that he said, turn the other cheek, judge not lest ye be judged, cast the first stone, you know, th- don't cast the first stone. These kinds of things, man, this is good stuff. And I have no problem saying that Jesus is my hero. Whether or not he died for my sins, it doesn't matter. But that guy, that's my jam. That's my dude right there. You know?
I try to imagine how much more effective Jesus would have been if he would have had an Alfred. if he had, the ability to
Right.
utilize certain technology,
Right, right. We ran out of wine, we just have water. Should I do the thing? Do the thing.
do the thing. Um, it is sort of, and we all sort of look at the other systems as crazy, right? Like the
Yeah,
Scientologist looks at the
sure.
Mormon like they're crazy, and the Mormon looks at the Jehovah's Witnesses like they're crazy, and the Jehovah's Witnesses look at the Scientologists like they're crazy, and we
Right.
all have a little crazy. We all have things in our life that we believe
Mhm.
that turn out to not be true, and
Yeah,
the arrogant certainty that some of us have, it eventually that blind spot is going to hurt you or someone else. And so I really like the kind of the message of just weed through it and not take any of this stuff for granted and use some common sense on how you use your beliefs to treat other
yeah.
people.
You know what? This is a perfect example. I was at, FanX, the Comic-Con up in Salt Lake.
Hmm.
I was at FanX a few years ago, and I'm watching some Star Wars fans, which I am a part of the Star Wars fan community. But I'm watching a bunch of Star Wars fans nearly rip each other's eyeballs out, arguing about the finer details of the sequels, about Ray and stuff like that. They are losing their minds, Bill. I thought they were on the verge of a riot. They were absolutely frothing at the mouth, angry at each other over Star Wars. And me, an intellectual, I kind of was watching the whole thing and I felt so much like going, y'all know none of that's real, right? Like, none of it. Like, they were getting so worked up, and you're like, you realize the Death Star is actually just a soundstage in England? Like, that's not none of this is real. It's all fake. George Lucas just pulled it right out of his butt. This is not real, you know? But people can get so worked up when they care too much about things that don't matter. You know what I mean? Just let it go, man. Let it go. Where's the victims? There's nothing.
Yeah.
You don't like the movie. It's not the end of the world. Shut up. You know?
We
And
have
that's the same with religion. Just you can't prove any of this stuff, so knock it off.
Yeah, we have one rule in our friend circles that's just don't be a dick. And to be a dick, you have to have a victim, right? Because
Mhm.
if you're not bothering anybody, you get to be as weird as you want to be.
Yep.
Um,
Somebody actually pointed out the perfect definition of an a-hole, and I forgot who did it, but an a-hole is somebody who demands respect from someone without giving any respect.
mm,
That's an a-hole. When
mm,
he walks in the room and he thinks, "You guys need to think I'm awesome, but I refuse to ever think you're awesome," that's an a-hole.
yeah.
Respect is a two-way street, you know?
Amen. Amen. When you were talking about these guys at the Comic-Con convention,
Mhm.
just about ready to get to fisticuffs,
Mhm. Mhm.
it reminds me, somebody said, it feels like sometimes people are fighting over whether Bilbo Baggins can ride a bicycle, because I don't think none of the movies ever show him on a bicycle. And, you can debate these kinds of things till the sun
Yeah.
goes down. But
I believe that's called high priest quorum. Y when you get together, you start arguing about Kolob. "None of y'all have been there. Knock it
yeah,
off."
yeah, you have no idea if it exists, and if it does, what it looks like, yet
And
you're
how does
taking
this
another
affect
human
your
being's
life at
word for it, and he
all?
wasn't there either.
None of this is provable. Knock it off. Yeah.
Star Trek or Star Wars?
Oh, Star Wars.
Oh,
By a long shot.
yeah, Star Trek is I didn't mind the Star Wars movies, all of them. They're all enjoyable. But
Mhm.
man, I'm much more a Star Trek guy. And I was in Ohio, I went to the mall in my hometown, and it changed quite a bit. One of the stores was solely a Star Trek merchandise store. You could buy uniforms. There was a
Wow.
makeshift bridge that you could get pictures on. They had
I think it was called the Virgin Megastore. Dun, 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 wah! Sorry.
uh so it was they had like all the monitors in the store look like
Like the
the
bridge?
display things from the bridge,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so
So I could
cool.
turn like the AC up in the store, but it looked like I was about ready to transport somebody
Yeah.
to a Klingon planet. But you get people like you said, people debate like whether Klingon is the better language than the Ferengis, and
Get a life.
it's
Look at
it's for all those watching, if you have any degree of belief, again, you're welcome to them.
Sure.
Neither one of us is saying like, hey, your belief is nonsense. But if you get into an argument with somebody else about your belief or that yours is right and theirs is wrong when really they're both absurd to some degree, at least on the
Right, they're both
surface.
opinions. Yeah.
And especially if you use your beliefs to hurt others, which I've seen so many times in my life, where because I'm so certain my system is true, I get to use the rules of my system to knock the rest of you down.
Yeah.
And it just
That's
seems so
middle
unhealthy.
school in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like in middle school, it's your pants are look stupid to me, therefore you're stupid, therefore we're going to shun you. You're stupid pants boy. And then now you're stupid pants boy all year long. That there's no lanes of opinion and fact. It's all just melded together until their brains develop later on. If you're in middle school and you go, "Oh, you like pickles? I've had pickles. Pickles are gross. You like gross things. You're an idiot." That's it.
Yeah.
It's also
Yeah.
Fox News. But you've got you've also got or
You're not hurting our
MSNBC,
demographic.
save your stuff. So, but then there's, when you get older in college, somebody goes, "Oh, I like pickles." And you go, "Oh, I'm not a fan." End of that's the end of it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But there are so many people that are stuck in that middle school mentality of, Ohio sucks, Michigan sucks.
Yeah. It makes me wonder
Stop.
if the bully in school is really he's got his own issues at home. He's looking for his own sense
Mhm.
of security, confidence, well-being, and sort of
Yeah.
takes it out on the next person because he's not getting that need met on his own. It makes me wonder if
Yeah.
the adults who use their certainty about uncertainties are also sort of struggling inside to just feel secure in their own world, and maybe it's a reflection of their own sort of voids or emptinesses or blind spots.
Well, my mom used to be a teacher, and, when she came home from parent-teacher conferences, I really wish she would start drinking because it would've really helped. But she'd just get bludgeoned at these parent-teacher conferences. But she did tell me one thing. She goes, "Y I don't even have to look at the papers to find out whose kid belongs to what parents. As soon as they walk into the room, just a vibe check, boom." She could tell right off the bat because they were just that's how you pass your generational trauma, so to speak.
Mhm.
It's like almost inevitable. But yeah. Yep.
We had a teacher in school, a science teacher, and he would walk on the insides of his feet, and we thought, man, like he must have had like a birth defect or something when he was
Mhm,
born. Couldn't figure out like why he did that. And then I was a senior in high school, and his kid became a freshman in high school, and
mhm.
his kid walked the same way. Like we
Oh,
just do what our parents do, and
yeah, yeah,
not just our personality traits, but often our mannerisms and the kid must have been like, well, that's
yeah.
how dad walks. So when I take my first steps,
I've often thought it would be so cool to get a time machine and then just go and have dinner with the Foley family in Ireland, generations ago.
you'd see it,
Just
wouldn't
to
you? You'd see
sit
parts of you.
Yeah, just to sit at the dinner table and just watch and go, "Oh, that's where dad got it." Or just, "Oh, okay. That exact same stupid joke has been passed down for how long?" Or just the way that they treat each other. Culture, what is this thing? Culture is like water to a fish. You don't notice it until it's gone.
Mm, yeah,
Until you're in another culture, you don't even notice you have a culture.
yeah.
It's so ingrained in you, you know?
Mm,
As
mm,
a wedding officiant, I see it all the time. One half of the room doesn't laugh at the joke, the other half does. The
yeah,
next joke, that half laughs, the other half doesn't.
yeah.
It's just crazy how we
Mm.
pass this crap on.
That's something we both do. Me only recently, but we're both wedding
Mhm.
officiants, and
Yeah.
you've been very helpful. By the way, I early on in this kind of space reached out to you and just asked for your advice and
Mhm.
thoughts, and deeply appreciate you being helpful. It's given me the chance to skip a few mistakes, so I appreciate you.
It's pretty darn fun.
Yeah, you're doing really good at that, by the way. I really think you've sort of set yourself up as like the top one or two, officiant in Southern Utah, and I think you have a real knack for kind of standing up in front of people and
Well, that's
doing
kinda like being the
theater.
world's tallest Smurf, though, you know? I mean, it's top officiant. There's, like, 6 of us.
Oh, I think there's more than that, but yeah, I think you just do a hell of a good job. Your reviews are great. Anyway, folks, if you're getting married in
Anyway.
Southern Utah and you don't want Bill Reel to do it, have Michael Foley.
Yeah, and if you don't want me, get Bill Real.
There you go.
That works.
I want to talk for a moment about reality. I've spent a lot of time in the last year. This was not my wheelhouse at all. Still
Mhm,
not, but at least it's my interest now. I've been thinking about things like quantum mechanics. Again, I'm not science minded in these fields, so I watch YouTube videos on some of the experts, and it's interesting as they debate what is reality. And
mm,
they're all saying right now, to some degree, that, and the one guy puts it this way, Donald Hoffman says that our eyes are like a VR headset. Inevitably, what really is in front of us is not what we see. And most of us go like, "Oh, that's ridiculous. I see the world as it is. Here's a table.
mhm,
I know that's a
yep,
table." But we also, if you just take a moment and you go, um, I know that every other species sees the world different than me. I know dogs
mhm,
see, sense things that
mhm,
I don't see or sense.
yeah,
I know that cats see and sense things that I don't see or sense.
right,
They have a capacity that I'm missing.
mhm,
And it's easy to go like, "Oh, dogs see in black and white and cats see in green and yellow." That really misses the mark. They might have some limitations we don't have. They also have other perceptions we are completely missing. And once you understand that, you realize that in whatever reality is, we are not seeing reality as it is. And not that you need to follow up and talk about it from that point of view, but I do want to ask, have there been moments in your life where you've had to like stop and go like, that doesn't work the way I thought it would, and your sense of reality changed or shifted?
ooh, ooh, mm. I feel like I should have taken an edible about an hour and a half ago for this. Uh, I've heard lovely things. Anyway, so I think the
There's
the
no victim. There's no victim. If you do it in the privacy of your own home, sitting
There's
on the
no
couch,
victim,
no,
baby, I wasn't driving.
there's no victim.
But, man, reality.
This is your question, by the way. I assumed
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah, but for some reason, I forgot all about it. There are many times that jolt you out of reality. One of those, have you ever been in a car accident?
Um, yes, minor ones, though. But yes,
Okay.
I can certainly speak to what you're about to say.
But quickly right after a car accident, there's
Mm.
this strange feeling that you have. Like, is this real? You're questioning, is this a dream right now? Did this actually really happen just now? I've been in car accidents where I got hit by a truck while I was on a scooter and I went flying through the air and tumbled and blah, 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 and I remember being on the pavement looking around through my helmet and just going, did that just really happen? There's many times in life that are kind of like that. Um I got a divorce before. I kind of skipped over that little thing. When I was young, I got married and the marriage was only about a year and a half long. And everything that I knew about marriage was wrong. I always thought, if I'm just making everybody happy all the time, if I'm paying the bills, if I'm doing, what I need to be doing in that the rest of the details will just take care of themselves. And I was completely wrong. And there's lots of times in life where something happens, like your wife may tell you that it's over and you just didn't see it. And you just but only in the aftermath when you look back and you go, "Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah." That happens when you have an argument with somebody. Have you ever had this happen where maybe you're in a fight with your wife? I know you have the perfect marriage and you've never had an argument, but try to imagine it, Bill. That you've had an argument with your wife, and for a while there, you're going, "What's her deal?" You know what I mean? You're like, "I'm not wrong. I'm not gonna apologize for this.
Yeah.
She's the crazy one." And you're like, "No, no, 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 no." But you have to think about it long and hard, and you go, "Oh, oh, oh, now I know where she got that. Now I know where, oh, I completely forgot that." So much of reality is us just being locked in our own heads, and sometimes it takes a lot to get out of our own heads, and that's the
Mm,
best way that I can think of it. I spend a lot of time trapped in my own head,
mm,
like a lot
mhm.
of time. I will go here's one that sucks. My wife will send me a text message at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or something, and I realize that I haven't talked to her since that morning. She hasn't even crossed my mind because 'cause I'm editing a YouTube video or something like that, and boy, that sucks. When you get a text message that says, "Where are you?" That's really scary, or, "Did you remember that we have a recital today for one of our kids and I didn't know?" Just always being trapped in my own head is, like, one of my biggest enemies. Do you struggle with that?
All the time. Yeah, I am kind of the absent-minded professor. I'm the guy who, if I'm editing a YouTube video, I'm also sort of OCD about this thing has to get done completely before I can leave it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've heard several women in recent weeks, months complain about the fact that us guys, maybe it's a guy thing. I don't want to justify it in any way because I think it's not
Mhm,
a good behavior, but sort of allow the day to go by where we kind of compartmentalize our day. We're doing the things we need to get done.
mhm.
We'll get back to the home, the family, the wife when we get off work and get back to the house, but sort of don't really think about all the other facets of our life.
Yeah.
So like you say, when that text comes in to realize like, oh, like I haven't
Oh, yeah, I
really
have a
paid any
family.
attention to the person who should be and is the most important person in my life.
We went on a cruise, me and my wife, and she's like, "I miss the kids." And I kid you not, Bill, in that moment, I thought, "Oh, yeah, I have kids." I
Yes.
wasn't even drunk.
Mm-mm.
I was just away from them long enough, so I was like, "I'm feeling pretty good right now. I don't miss anything. I'm not even thinking about anything." And I've told my wife many times, "I'm not stupid, I'm simple. There's a difference." Like, there
Yeah.
really I'm not a dumb guy. It's just when I'm looking at this thing, everything else is gone.
It is.
It's
Yeah.
that whole hyper focusing thing. It does suck, and I
And
apologize for
and
my
it's gotten
bitterness.
me in the doghouse a few times. It sounds like it's gotten you in the doghouse a few times. I think that we humans shouldn't make excuses for it, that we really do need to work on changing so that we don't do that thing where we block out the rest of the world because everyone else is still living their life with us as a part of
Yeah.
it. So,
Yep.
yeah. Um, you're a really creative person. I also see you as somebody who's experienced personal growth, life growth. I think sometimes those things can go hand in hand. I think sometimes they can, just like the subject we just talked about, I think sometimes creativity can get in the way of our relationships. Um, Curious your thoughts on how to blend creativity with personal growth, and also if you have any thoughts maybe on how creativity can be a distraction sometimes.
Well, yeah, like I was just saying, I when I think of the perfect situation, heaven, I mean, like a heavenly feeling, right? I think of that state of flow
Mm,
that you can get into. Right now, it's editing videos, but before that, it was, mixing sound for the radio or
yeah.
coming up with the perfect thumbnail or the perfect
Mm.
banner or
I can
whatever.
relate to all of this.
I just lose myself in that stuff,
Mm.
and it is pure heaven. It is the most fun I have with my pants still on. That is the most fun that I could possibly have with clothes on. It's so much fun, and, but it's through that creativity that I can express myself and that I can, find things and go down a YouTube rabbit hole of watching
Mm.
Conan O'Brien's best bits or David Letterman or something like that. I love doing that kind of stuff. And I would say that's where I find I think from the outside it looks like I'm just wasting time. I think from the outside it just looks like I'm doing nothing. But really that's where I find my meaning a lot of
Yeah.
the time. You know?
Yeah.
That's where I've grown. And if I can look at something that I've made a year ago and it sucks, that's a pretty good feeling, because it means that I've gotten better
Mm.
at something. It means that I've gotten better. Some things I'll never even try, but I just like to watch other people do really well, like woodworking videos. I don't watch that crap all day. I like watching somebody like sand a chair and like make it into something amazing. I love that crap. I'll never do it, but I love watching it. I love
Mm.
watching people create something out of nothing. And that's what I like to do. Whether it's a stupid YouTube video or a TikTok or with the radio show, if I can make somebody giggle on their way to work, that that's where I find meaning, you know?
Much the same. If I'm creating an episode for one of the podcasts, specifically when I cover like religious history,
Mhm.
Mormon history, when I can dive into a topic and just be let free for 2 or 3 days to go
Mhm.
scour all the sources on the internet and find 2 or 3 things that no one else ever knew about,
Yeah,
no one else ever
yeah,
seen. And I get the
yeah,
chance to figure out, how do I want to present this to an audience so that they can wrap their head around this new idea, get a chuckle, get informed, have an insight. It feels like magic. And I've heard it
mhm,
referred to as the flow before. And there's something that we humans on some level chase that, right? Like,
mhm,
we've been trying to survive for millions of years as human beings. We really aren't made to sit on our laurels and just be okay with the way life is. In fact, the people who experience most easily depression, not across the board, I don't want to sit here and say a blanket statement, but it feels as though often it's people who have their basic needs met, have plenty of time on their hands, and they're really not required to do something. So again,
yeah,
I've had kids before who suffer from depression and because they really don't feel there's anything in the world that needs them. And having some sort of cause, something you need to get up in the morning and do it. In fact, you can look at it from the other side of the coin. People in third world or underdeveloped countries who are struggling to make ends meet, struggling to make the next meal work, often studies show often have no time to even think about things like depression or
yeah,
suicidal ideology.
yeah.
It really is a focus of those of us who have our basic needs met and don't feel needed in the world. And so you often see people sort of figure out what their cause is in the world, how they're going to use their creative power and do some good in the world. And that brings them, most of those folks reply of being like the most alive they've ever been when they get a chance to do something that they think is useful and helpful to the rest of humanity.
Do you ever feel, like a guilt about being sad? I get this. You brought up an interesting kind of a thing
Mm.
because I have this I struggle with depression. I take pills for depression, and I have for many years and probably always will. But one thing when I'm really depressed, this little guilt thing comes into my head, going back to that, the Foley family in Ireland
Yeah,
many, many
yeah.
years ago.
Put your
It just
bootstraps on, boy. Get
Yeah,
out there. Plow the
yeah, if
field.
I was in there and I was just like, "Oh, I don't know, I just don't feel happy," it would be like, "Who does?" You're like, "What do you mean happy? Shut up." It's like, yeah, I just had a kid starve to death. Like, shut up about you're happy. You know what I mean? And that it fights with it like it's such a I don't feel happy is such a first world problem where, the majority of humanity right now doesn't have time to think about am I happy? They're trying to think, am I going to live today?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and so there's that guilt of, "Oh, I'm depressed. Oh, but I don't have a right to be depressed. Now I'm even more depressed."
Oh, little Foley, don't be
Yeah.
kissing the Blarney Stone. Get your ass off the
Why
couch and go plow the field.
are you so sad? Eat a potato.
That's just
You
it.
know, it's
Like
like
2.5 meals a day was just potatoes. I mean,
right,
quit complaining.
right.
But you're right. There certainly is a propensity to feel shame or guilt or mm, one of those sorts of feelings when you don't feel okay about things.
Yeah,
And it certainly does seem, as you point out, it certainly seems to be a generational lowercase t, maybe uppercase t, maybe trauma
yeah.
that was passed on to you that made us all feel like we're not allowed to complain. And we grew up, I grew up in the 1980s. I think the 1980s were marvelous. I don't think there's a better decade to have grown up as a kid
Mhm.
than the 80s,
It
maybe
was
the
pretty
90s,
sweet.
but the 80s and 90s felt great.
Yeah.
And uh, even then, though, no one talked about their feelings. When I have conversations with my friends about deep topics, I'm constantly made aware in my head that my parents and their friends and their siblings they were close to when they got together, they never had these conversations about
Mm-mm.
how everybody was handling problems and what people's feelings were and how
Well,
hard
especially
life
the
is.
men.
Mm.
Especially the men. Like, we grew up in the same, machismo society.
I'm 45, by the way. How old are you?
I'm 44. We're right
44.
there.
See, same age.
And so I remember, the dude, I was into Pee Wee Herman,
Mm.
right? I was in band. I
Mecca,
was a
Mecca high, Mecca
theater
shiny ho.
nerd. Yeah, Mola Mecca Mecca Shani Ho. So I was into all of that kind of stuff. Everybody else was into football. And in Michigan, you were in 2 categories. Either you were into football or you were gay and needed to be beat up for it. That was the '80s in the Midwest, and when I explain it to my wife, she doesn't believe me. She grew up in Utah, where people are nice to your face. So there there was there was that. I was slammed
Which
into
maybe is
lockers.
better.
I was into all kinds of stuff, and yeah, no, nobody talked about their feelings.
No, my friend even said,
That's
like, if you
insane.
got molested in the '80s, you just got on your bike and went home.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
nobody really helped each other know what
Who would
was
you
okay
tell?
to tolerate or what wasn't,
Yeah.
what you had a right to complain about or feel sorry
Totally.
for or have hurt feelings over.
Totally, totally,
Yeah.
totally. And so that's why it's so weird is me being an old person watching TikTok and people talking about their traumatic day at school where they failed a test. And you're like, "Mm, is it though?"
Yeah.
You know, but it's a sliding scale. It definitely is a sliding scale of
I
what counts.
I think in part, at least for me on my past history, I think in part that comes from my mom and dad both had really hard childhoods.
Mhm.
Foster care for my mom. My dad was physically abused by his father. And then you go back another generation, and my grandfather is sort of a child in the Great Depression.
Yeah.
And when you think about what it would be like, again, here we are in 2023, and everybody plays, Angry Birds is the old game. I don't know what the current game is, but everybody's playing Angry Birds on their phone, and nobody gives a lick about how hard things are because it's easy to go get food at the grocery store, and
Yeah.
life is, for the most part, as long as you're not suffering from mental illness and as long as you have your arms and your legs, you're going to figure out how to get by.
Right.
And in that time in the Great Depression, I mean, my dad would tell me how they often ran out of milk and they would use water on their cereal instead of milk. And I'm like, ooh, I'd just
Mhm.
rather eat dry cereal or
Sure.
but I've never had to deal with that. They said they had holes in their shoes and they'd put cardboard in their shoes
Yeah.
to get through another couple of months before they could get new shoes. And I think that generation, you sort of just had to stuff it down. It doesn't do any good to complain about it because life's hard. And the, our best
Sure.
chance at getting by is to ignore the pain and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then you stack on top of that the religious stuff as well.
Mm.
We're always. I remember talking to somebody. It was a family member. They went to a funeral of another family member, and she was crying at this funeral and then later felt guilt about it. I said, "Why would you feel guilt about crying at a funeral?" I said,
Hmm.
Well, clearly my faith isn't strong enough, because if my faith was strong enough, then I would know that they were in a better place." I mean, that's like next level
Yeah.
guilt. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Of just suck it up, put on a happy face. There's people that are worse than you. Knock it off. There's children that are starving in China. Eat your vegetables. That kind of a thing that we grew up with. Um, but yeah, it sounds like we have matching trauma. Yeah, that's
Yeah. It's similar. I
pretty
think it's
good.
that Michigan, Ohio, Midwestern flavor,
Right, right.
which leads to maybe a conversation about compassion. One of the questions we've got here is, have you ever seen like an act of compassion that just sort of like, you're like, wow, like that's the right way to show up as a human being? Um, because I think it's sometimes easy. I have somebody I know who's dealing with cancer at the moment. And I sort of was caught off guard by this person's comment the other day when I was in their space. We were hanging out, a bunch of friends enjoying an evening, and they looked at me and others too, but looked at me and said, "You know," I said, "What is helpful to you? Do you want to talk about it? Do you not want to talk about it?"
Mhm.
Because I don't know. I'm not the one who's dealing with it. I lost a mom to cancer. I certainly am appreciative of how monstrous that disease can be,
Yeah.
how that can be. But um, this person's response was like, "I want to talk about it. I want someone to sit next to me, and instead of trying to get away from this discomfort, I want them to sit next to me and feel it as I talk
Mm.
about how hard this shit is."
Yeah. Yeah.
And often we humans go like, "I want to be helpful, but I don't want to bother them. I'm going to sort of keep my distance. And if they ask for help, I'll help them, but I'm not really going to put myself in their space." And it really seems to me, this was kind of a light bulb moment for me. It really seems to me that people who are deeply suffering really just want someone to sit with them as they suffer.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on maybe some acts of compassion that you've seen in your life?
I I'm trying to remember where I heard this, but you know, when you have a friend who's like going through something, and you've got this urge to say, "Hey, please, if you need anything, let me know." I heard somebody say that's the dumbest thing to say. What you really should do is something.
Just do
Just
it.
do it. Just
Yeah.
do the thing. If your brain thinks of a nice thing to do, do the thing. Don't ask, "Hey, would you like this?" or "Would it help if?" Do the thing.
We just talked about how our generation learned from our parents and them from their parents that we're just not to bother anybody. We're not to
Right.
make anybody uncomfortable. We're not to.
Mhm.
So which is what you're pointing out, when you ask somebody, "Hey, if you need something, let me know." What you sort of are telling them is, "I don't really want to be bothered unless it's an emergency." And that's what they're hearing, and they're not going to bother you. And as you're
Yep.
pointing out, like, just do the damn thing.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, uh I've done this in situations that, let's say, it's something very simple, like a Walmart parking lot. You see a lady who is struggling trying to get like something heavy into her car. And the thought passes your mind, "Oh, well, that sucks. She probably needs some help." Uh, or and then your next thought is to say, "Hey, you need some help?" To which she, being an American, will say, "No, I don't. I'm fine," which is a lie, because once again, we're Americans and this is what we do. And so the right thing to do is run over there, grab the damn thing, and put it in their car for them
Yeah.
and say, "I've got this for you. I've got that going on." That kind of stuff. Um, I think, I've been on airplanes where little kids are screaming, and, older people are somehow grandparents forgot what children are like. I don't know, but they get
Mm.
angry about it, and I've
Shut
been,
that kid up.
yeah, just shut that kid up. He's like, "Did you even raise one? Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? This is what they do." And I've always tried to go out of my way to go to that person and go, "I've got 5. I get it." You know, what and then I'll give, like, does the kid like candy? You know, what can we do? Not to shut the kid up, but just to look at the parent like, I've been there, man. I get it." You know, and just that simple kind of compassion. Don't ask, just do the thing. Just do the thing.
Yeah. Amen.
Meanwhile, my wife is listening to this and going, "Bull crap,
Yeah,
you
do the damn
hypocrite."
thing, Mikey. You're gonna get home after this airs, and
Yeah,
that's gonna be the
I'm
response.
not good at it. I'm just saying this is what I want, you know? But
Um, what's something crazy you've seen? The question here is something surreal, something outlandish. What's something you experienced that if you hadn't have been there and experienced it yourself, you would have just been like that just didn't happen the way that you said it did.
yeah, yeah. In radio, we have a lot of kind of strange things that happen. I've got well, actually, this is the thing. And the fact that I'm on the radio is so weird that it doesn't make sense. When I tell other people how I got into it, they like other radio people look at me and go, "No, it didn't." Like that doesn't happen. So let me just tell you
Please.
exactly what that is. I was training to sell tires for a tire company. I won't name it, but it rhymes with Dishilin. So I was being trained to sell for these guys. Soul sucking work, but it paid very, very well. And it was a 90-day training period. On day 88, they called me and said, "It's not going to work." And I was out of a job. And one of the things they said was I was too outgoing to sell tires. And I'll never forget that phrase, too outgoing to
Wow.
sell tires.
We need
They
someone
were
less outgoing.
I'm gonna tell you right now, they were right. They were 100% right, because if you have ever spent any time with, like, long haul truckers, especially their bosses,
Mm,
0 personality on these
mm.
people, 0. And I was just not rubbing them the right way. Like, I was just a goofball. And so, too outgoing to sell tires. So I'm driving around town here in Southern Utah, and I'm feeling bad for myself. And I'm listening to the radio, which I never did. I was always listening to, like, podcasts like yours, this fine, fine program. And, I was driving around, but the radio was on, and there was a sweeper, this thing in between songs that said, "We're looking for an outgoing personality to be on the morning show." And I thought, "I'm so outgoing, I got fired for it. I'm gonna do this." So I looked it up and I went to the radio station and I went to the top and I said, "Hi, I'm here about the morning show job." And the guy goes, "Do you have any experience?" I said, "No, but I'm very funny." And I did it very confidently, like I never do that. And he looked at me for a few beats and went, "All right, you're on Friday. Let's see what you got." And that was my audition.
And
So
you've
I
made a
go
career of it.
on Friday and I apparently did a well enough job that they thought I was funny, and it took 3 months of convincing the higher ups to hire me because I had no experience at all, but I was right for the part. But,
Mm.
and then finally, I got the gig on a morning show, which usually you don't get right off the bat. You have to work for many years doing overnights and, grunt work before getting a morning show. But, then I got it, and I have to say there are many times, and it sounds like a cliche, that I look around at my life and I go, "Holy crap. Like, I this happened." You know what I mean? Like, this is what I wanted to do when I was a little kid. But in Michigan, if you say, "I wanna be in entertainment," they look at you like you just said, "I wanna be a shark." Like, no, you
Mm.
can't. You live here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no. You think you're better than us? Clock in at GM and shut up.
Yeah,
Like was
You're either a welder working with, iron in some way, or you're selling
yeah.
tires with uh,
But since I've gotten that
no outgoingness.
morning show gig, I have never heard anyone have an open audition for a radio gig in town since.
Mm,
It's crazy that I got in at the time that I did, and how I got in that I did. And before I was on the radio, my life was like 2 train tracks. I was on one of them, but I kept on looking over at that other train track that was on SNL, that was on the radio, that was making cool stuff, that was, all of that kind of stuff, but I was
mm,
stuck on that other track. And that's the stuff that messes with me in my mind because my logical brain says there is no plan. My logical brain says it's all coincidence, and my logical brain says there's no higher power up there that's interfering. But then this stuff happens and messes with me in a good way, but it messes with me and goes, "Man, this is more than luck." You know what I mean? The high and so having this job and having this position, stuff like that, I do feel like a responsibility to something. The flying spaghetti monster on the dark side of the moon, I don't know and won't know until I'm dead, but I have this responsibility to use it for good because
yeah.
it's just karma, you know. So
Y
yes, my life in itself is a this doesn't seem real, you know.
Yeah. You're really good at it, by the way. You're a really good radio personality.
Oh, thanks.
Um, and you just mentioned a little bit ago, that you struggle with depression, you take meds for it.
Mhm.
And it's such a strange thing. I think we see it in the lives of people like you who have a lot of charisma. They're joking all the time. They're
Yeah.
always laughing. They seem like the happiest people on the planet.
Mhm.
And often those personalities have some dark space there where they're
Yeah.
really having a hard time. Um, I'm just
I
curious, like,
go ahead.
I'm just curious when you show up on at a party or on the
Mhm.
screen, I see a happy person who's witty, humorous,
Mhm.
fun to be around, life of the party. What is some of the like underneath that? Is it sort of do you feel like you have to kind of be on point? You're constantly like, okay, got to insert the next joke here, got to say the next thing, got to is there a sort of pressure to perform in those moments? Not that
I
you're pretending, but
Yeah, I think that I've been doing it for so long now, like since I was a kid, so that it's actually very difficult to not make a joke.
Hmm,
If somebody tells me to be serious, that is a struggle because I am always subconsciously looking for the punchline,
yeah.
always.
Mm,
And I don't even notice that I'm doing it. It's just who I am at this point is how it feels. And so, but in those dark times, the things that I struggle with is probably the same stuff that a lot of people do. Sometimes I'll look in the mirror in the morning and I'll just think, "F you," you know.
fuck that guy.
Yeah, screw this fat piece of lard, you talentless hack, and I'll just, like, give myself a middle finger and then walk into the bathroom.
Yeah.
It's just this unwarranted hatred for myself that is just it's just there, and I'm not entirely sure where it comes from or anything like that, but it's just like maybe that's why I can deal with hate letters so well. Like, if somebody complains, I'd be like, "That's nothing, man. You should hear what I told myself today. That was brutal." Like, of just or like, it's been a while since me and Bonnie had a roll in the hay, and then I'll look in the mirror and I'll go, "I wouldn't F that guy either." And then I go on with my day.
I've had that once or twice
Yeah, you're like, "Well,
this
no
week.
wonder. I look at that." Gross. It's disgusting. And so, there's just that hatred and that self-doubt and that kind of a thing of I'll make a video that I think is really, really good and it won't get any views or it won't get any likes or something like that. And I'll go, oh, "Eh, I'm a loser." And then I have to stop and I go, I tell my kids all the time, "Don't attach your self-worth to the thumbs up buttons of strangers. That's the dumbest thing in the world." And yet I do it. You know what I mean? And then I go,
Yeah.
I've gotta clear myself of that head
And
trash.
even if you get even if you go viral and you get 4.2 million upvotes, next
Yeah.
week you better come out with another one because
I
it's
know.
not gonna mean two shits what you did last week.
Totally. I saw the documentary about Conan O'Brien called Conan O'Brien Can't Stop. And it was filmed during that time where he quit the Tonight Show and he had to go, on tour and stuff like that. Like, all of his dreams had just shattered in that moment. And I'm watching this documentary and I'm like, I'm looking in the mirror. 'Cause Conan O'Brien is the same way. He's this kind of a person who's a lot of fun on camera and stuff like that, and he's not being fake. He's being in that moment, we're very, very happy. But the minute the curtain goes down, the very minute he walks back to his dressing room and starts thinking about how that sucked, how he bombed that one joke, but he landed 100. But he's thinking about that one. You know what I mean? Like that. Ah! I wish there was a pill to get rid of that. That's
There is, but you have to live in
really
Oregon.
upsetting. We've got mesquite right down the road. Once again, so I've heard. So, there's things that I'm sure can help.
Uh, let's let's wrap up here. I've got one more question I want to ask you, and this one I'm gonna say, be serious, okay? Be
We're
real
serious.
serious.
You got it.
So this one is death and dying. And when people pick this out of the list of questions, again, folks, if you're new to the program, the series that we're doing right now, we give our guest a list of 80 to 100 questions, and they get to pick which ones they would like to speak to in the show.
Mhm.
And so, Mikey, you've picked all of these, and one of the questions you picked that so far about 80% of people pick is to talk about death and dying. And I'll preface this question with I'm scared to death of the dying process. I'm only scared of death in the sense that I want to make sure that my family have the resources to be able to pay the bills, not have chaos trying to figure out where everything's at and how to do it all, and that they can move on with some level of like, dad or husband gave enough prep to be able for us to pick up the pieces and move on.
Mm.
But dying scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
Because people, even, those last 3 minutes, I think it's a 50-50 shot whether it is absolutely horrendous or whether it's like, well, he went peacefully. Look at the smile on his face.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
pleasant. Like, I wish
Right.
I could die like that. But your thoughts maybe on death and dying, and maybe as you become more nuanced in your thinking, what I used to do years ago is I would go, don't worry about it. I die, I get kingdoms of heaven. I'm
Mm.
gonna I'm gonna get lots of chicks, and it's just
Oh,
gonna be a hell of a good time.
I miss that certainty. I miss it.
but
Yeah.
it's but it's gone. Like you've acknowledged
Mhm.
that in the show that you don't know what the hell's on the other side.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
what
if
do you
there is
do to
another
wrap? What's that?
or if there is another side.
Or if there is another side, it might be just a dirt nap. And me personally, I sort of lean that way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how you wrap your head around death and what does it do for the living, Mikey?
My thoughts on death. I too am very scared of it because I kinda like this being alive thing.
Mm.
Uh, I I like it, and I will be thinking, "What am I going to miss?" If I live long enough, I may get to an age where I don't care anymore. Hopefully, that's what it's like, but
You just don't care.
I'm not in my 80s yet, I don't know.
Mm-mm.
But hopefully, you get to an age where you look around and you go, "You know what? I've seen all the TV shows I wanna see. I've seen all the movies that I wanna see. I have watched my kids grow up. My grandkids are not that special. I don't know what you're gonna think, but I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I hope that's what it's like. I hope it's like at the end of a really long day of working outside. Like, if you ever, like, worked outside for a long time and you go, "I wanna go to bed and not wake up." You know, you're like, "I
Right.
am beat. I hope that's what it's like, so that it doesn't matter on the other end if
Yeah.
there's something or not. That's what I hope.
I just need a nap.
Yeah, I hope that I get so exhausted with life that I'm cool if I don't wake up. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mhm.
And that's what I'm hoping. I heard, this sounds like one of those faith promoting stories and stuff like that, so take it with a grain or a bucket of salt. Of nurses that say that, in the final stages of life, many people report, seeing their family members in the room before they die. People who have died before. If there is an afterlife, and that's a big old if there is an afterlife, I hope that in the final moments they send someone I know into the room to look at me, hold my hand, and go, "You ready? Let's do this." I hope that
Mm.
that that I can't think of a more comforting thing than having a dear friend or a family member show up, and we both look at each other with that kind of an understanding of, "Okay, I know what's next. Show me around the place. Let's do this." You
Mm.
know? Hopefully that's it, if there's an afterlife. If there's not an afterlife, I just hope I'm really, really tired. And I hope that I've done everything that I can. And I wish that I was joking when I say this, but I'm dead serious. If I find out that I'm dying and there's a new Star Wars movie in the works, I will be pissed. Like genuinely pissed about it
Mm.
until I've seen it. Once the credits go up, then I can go. But if there's one in the works and I know that I'm about to leave Earth, I will be so upset about it. So that's my mind frame right now, is that there's too many things that I wanna do and see, and I'm not ready to go. But I hope that one day I get tired enough to.
It sounds like the thing that we should do, at least sounds like what you think you should do, and I would say it's certainly what I would like to do, is live life to the fullest so
Mhm.
that when that moment comes, there isn't regrets and maybe I'm exhausted.
Yes, I want to live life so freaking hard
Mm.
that it exhausts me, that I
Yeah.
look at life and I go, "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly have another serving.
No.
I am full
Yeah.
from all of the cool shit that I have been doing." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I
Totally.
couldn't have another bite. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's a and I say this jokingly, it's a privileged position because there are kids in third world countries worried about that next meal they're gonna get,
Oh,
and
yeah,
we
don't
sort
worry.
of are lucky.
As soon as this is over, the guilt will set in. But for right now, that's what I'm thinking about.
I love it. Michael Foley, Mikey, in the misses, in the morning. Tell us if people wanna if they're not living here in Southern Utah, or if they are, tell
Mhm.
us how folks could find your radio program if they wanna hear more of your humor and the things you have to say.
Sure. You can always stream us at Planet 1051, myplanet1051.com. Tell your smart speaker to play Planet 105 1. You can listen to it live, or you can go on our YouTube page. The thing that I am ignoring my family in order to make better, it's Mikey and the Misses, Mikey and the MRS, Mikey and the Misses on YouTube, and I'm uploading nonsense every day.
Yeah,
Uh,
and you're hilarious, folks. If you just wanna laugh, go check out some of the things that Mikey, has put out, and, I really appreciate your humor and appreciate your time today, Mikey, and I appreciate your friendship too.
yeah,
So,
same with you. Love you, Bill.
cool. Awesome. Folks, check out the show at almostawakened.org or the Mormon Discussion YouTube channel. You can see the Almost Awakened playlist and see other conversations like this. If you want to donate, which we deeply appreciate, go to almostawakened.org, click the donate button. A few bucks a month goes a long way. And I hope you're enjoying these conversations. Mikey, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Bill.